There are two types of engineers, those who are learning Kubernetes and those who haven't read the data. That statement is going to offend a lot of people, but whenever I post about Kubernetes on my channels, I always get the same comments. Kubernetes is overkill. Kubernetes is too complex. Almost no company needs Kubernetes. And as an example, here's a tweet I made last week with some of its reactions. I wrote, unpopular opinion, not knowing Kubernetes in 2025 is like not knowing Git in 2015. Nearly half of software engineering jobs now require it, 96% of enterprises use it, and the average salary is 158K. And look at what people are saying then. Actual fact, virtually no software company needs or should expend effort on Kubernetes. You are deluding yourself. Children who want to be seen as a big boy grow the F up. I have seen exactly one client start with Kubernetes in the last 10 years and they stopped it within a year. It's going to fade soon. Hard disagree. 96% of the time, software doesn't need Kubernetes. And then if you scroll any tech social media for a while, like LinkedIn, you will see memes like this, where it's Kubernetes engineering. The app is only 200 megabytes, but the cluster stack is 12 gigabytes. And by the way, this is completely false because the footprint of K3s when it's installed is about 300, 500 megabytes. But the point here is that Kubernetes has this really bad reputation because people who don't understand it are the loudest voices on social media. The problem here is that these claims are complete lies that are actually wrecking people's careers. The demonization of Kubernetes prevents people from learning the skill that can change their lives. 5 years ago, I was working as a nurse, barely making $50,000 a year. I had no CS degree, no boot camp, no connections in the industry, but now I'm a senior DevOps engineer, pulling multiple six figures, turning away freelance clients because I don't have time to take up more work. And I've been working completely remote for almost 2 years now. And Kubernetes is the skill that made this possible. It is one of the most lucrative and future-proof skills that you can learn, and it has completely changed my life. If a nurse can learn it, why would it be too hard for people who have been coding for 15 years? It drives me nuts whenever I see people actively discouraging you from learning Kubernetes. These takes like this are actively hurting people's careers because someone who is new, who is considering to pivot to the tech industry or who is maybe a sysadmin working with Linux and figuring out what the next step is for him because he wants to go from $50,000 a year to $150,000, and then he reads these takes that almost no company needs Kubernetes, they might get a very wrong image about Kubernetes as a technology and the market adoption. But the truth is, if you want to work remotely for the next 20 years at 6 figures or more, the path is very clear. Most companies, in fact, use Kubernetes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this comment here and I'm going to prove to you that this is completely delusional. Because here's what the data says. Kubernetes is the second largest open source project on the planet. The market is prospected to grow from 1.7 billion to 11.8 billion US dollars. 95% of the Fortune 500 companies are working with Azure Kubernetes Service. 60% of enterprises have adopted it. ChatGPT, Claude, and Grok are all built and run on Kubernetes. In other words, if you want an infrastructure job in the Fortune 500, you should be learning Kubernetes. And the tech industry as a whole is growing, but AI is a huge driver of that growth. 68% of companies are understaffed in AI and ML operations. This is made very clear by the Linux Foundation report, where it shows the understaffed departments in companies. 68% of them being AI and ML engineering operations. But guess what? AI and ML engineering operations means Kubernetes. ChatGPT, Claude, and Grok all run on Kubernetes. They are being operated on Kubernetes and they need the people who are operating this. Likewise, for cloud computing and platform engineering are still being reported as understaffed. So the Kubernetes market is growing explosively, and the amount of jobs is growing explosively. And there are several reasons why Kubernetes is seeing such rapid adoption and growth. It is now over 10 years old and it gained enterprise trust. Kubernetes does more than just running containers. It's the platform to build platforms. And Kubernetes is built to scale, which makes it perfect for AI. And the biggest signal here that Kubernetes has won is coming from Microsoft. Kubernetes is running Copilot, Bing Search, Office 365, Microsoft Teams, Xbox recommendations. All of these are running on Kubernetes. And likewise, many of their Azure services under the hood are actually using their own Azure Kubernetes service to host these services, like container instances and Azure Container Apps, etc. All of that is hosted on Kubernetes. The data is clear. Huge companies with critical workloads are choosing to run them on Kubernetes. Still, if you base your opinions on social media and blog posts, you may get the impression that it's some niche technology that nobody should use. So by now you should understand that this is completely false and that in fact most companies are using Kubernetes. But what does this mean for you then? Now, instead of relying on opinions on social media, let's dive into my favorite truth serum, which is data. If Kubernetes is dying or overkill, someone forgot to tell the companies paying 200K salaries for it. You're being told to ignore the skill while the market screams for it. Here's the latest data on Kubernetes jobs and salaries. There are 121,000 Kubernetes job openings worldwide. 10% of these jobs pay over $300,000 a year. The average salary for Kubernetes jobs is $171,000 per year. Kubernetes salaries are increasing by 15 to 19% year over year in Europe. Now let's put this in perspective. In 2024, IT salaries increased by 1.2% in general. But Kubernetes salaries are increasing at 10x the market rate. And that is not a typo or a bubble. That's what happens when companies need skills and they can't find enough people. And let's talk about software engineering as well, because during COVID and even before that, like almost anyone who did a coding bootcamp could get a software engineering job. But these glory days of software engineering are over. Of course, this has several reasons, one of them being the rise of AI tools and that there's no real need for people with mediocre coding skills anymore because AI can do that. But now software engineers are earning 128K on average. But Kubernetes engineers, they're getting almost $50,000 more at 171K on average. That's a difference of more than $500,000 over a 10-year career. Let that sink in. $500,000. Like, what would you do with $500,000 or more? So if you're listening to this as a software engineer, here's a harsh truth. You are doing serious damage to your career if you are ignoring Kubernetes, because 43% of Kubernetes job postings are for software engineers. Okay, so we've established that most companies need people with Kubernetes skills and that it pays exceptionally well. Now let's break down the next myth that these ignorant people are spouting on social media. But before we dive into that, I just want to ask you for a very small favor, and that is to click that subscribe button down below and maybe hit the like if you're in a good mood as well. It really, really helps to grow my channel, to signal to the algorithm that people get value from my content. It takes you 1 second to do it, so please just do it, and it will help me a lot. It's a free way to support the channel, so I can keep going and making these videos for you. Thank you very much. Let's continue. So this myth is that Kubernetes is hard to learn. Now, this is going to sound a bit harsh, but Kubernetes is fucking easy. It is not hard to learn at all. And I'll prove it to you by telling you my own story. 4 years ago, I was working in my first junior DevOps role. It was very heavy on Linux system administration, and we were running containers on virtual machines. We were deploying these containers with Ansible, and when something went wrong, we had to SSH into the server to manually restart the container. Yeah, it was a complete nightmare, and it was not DevOps at all. I mean, we were using open source technology, and at least we were running containers, but the problem is that if you have dozens of virtual machines running these containers as our container hosts, and you're running multiple replicas, it becomes very messy very quickly if you're just using Ansible to manage this. So it was a lot of manual work. And during my evening studies, I came across Kubernetes because, yes, I was a junior engineer. I was in my first job, but I did not stop there, right? Like I'm always going for it. I'm always improving my craft because I have this craftsman's mindset. Just landing that first job does not mean that you've made it. You have to dedicate your life to your craft, in my opinion. So I was always studying in the evenings and in the weekends. And during those studies, I came across Kubernetes. So I started trying it out. I started playing with it. It was very overwhelming at first, but I just spun up something very quickly locally on my machine, and I just needed to get a sense of it. I'll tell you, instead of manually restarting these containers, now I was applying a deployment manifest to my Kubernetes cluster, and Kubernetes was handling the rest when something would die, when a container died. And this is the moment where I fell completely in love with Kubernetes. At that same moment, when I first did that, and when I first did a rolling update where it would update all of the images one by one, and it would automatically roll back when something went wrong. Oh my goodness, it was so beautiful. I fell completely in love with it. And I was a junior at that time, but still, because of that pain that I was experiencing during my day job, this manual, repetitive work that was basically crushing my soul, I saw this is the solution. Even as a junior, I could recognize this. And this is, again, probably the reason why these people on social media get these opinions, because they actually don't have any real experience to bring to the table, right? They usually are not in a situation or in a level of expertise to actually make a good judgment about that situation. So on that same evening, when I fell in love with Kubernetes, I did some market research, and already then, 4 years ago, the trends were very clear that Kubernetes was on the rise. And I instinctively knew that I had to go all in on this, and my life completely changed. I devoted all of my free time to my Kubernetes studies, but I was a pioneer in my work environment. This was a government entity, and I was working with a few older people who had been there for many years. And here comes the new guy who is going to try to revolutionize everything, right? Well, that wasn't obviously going to work. So I had no one around me that could teach me this stuff. So I had to figure it out all alone. But after devoting all of my evenings and weekends to these Kubernetes studies, I landed the CKA after almost a year. And then 3 months later, I doubled my salary by getting a job as a Kubernetes consultant. Remember, I was a junior at this point with no previous experience in IT and no CS degree. If an ex-nurse can do it while working full-time, there is no excuse for you. And again, people were actively discouraging me. They were saying, Kubernetes is way too hard. Like, what are you doing? You're a junior. You know Linux, but you have no experience with Kubernetes. Why are you learning this? Why are you spending all of this time? My employer literally discouraged me from going for the CKA because they said it was too hard for me. When you say that something is too hard for me, I will see that as a challenge, right? I will prove you wrong. And I am not a very smart guy. I'm not very intelligent, but I can outwork anyone. And I just applied myself. I worked really hard for it. I was intentional with my note-taking. And less than a year in my free time, I achieved my CKA. I got the skills. And then I doubled my salary. So in the end, I won. I proved them wrong, and I reached my goal of doubling my salary, and things just skyrocketed from there. So I was doing this completely alone in my free time. I had no one around me to teach me this stuff, so I spent a lot of time. I went into all the wrong rabbit holes, and I was learning all of the wrong stuff and doing all of the wrong approaches. But after I went through this process and going through this pain and this struggle myself, I actually figured out a methodology that makes it much easier for people to learn Kubernetes. And my students who come to me and pay me to teach them Kubernetes and coach them into Kubernetes careers within 2 to 20 weeks, they learn Kubernetes in a matter of a few weeks. I've taught Kubernetes to thousands of people at this point, and I've helped 800 plus people land 6-figure jobs as Kubernetes and DevOps engineers. So if me and thousands of other people can do it, you can do it too. You got this. You just need to get over that psychological block that social media has created in your brain. And to prove to you that it's easy, I will link a free Kubernetes course that I created below in the description. You can get that completely for free. Just get started with it, and this will be the path to your next six-figure job. Click the link below, get it for free, no strings attached, just get started. Getting a $200,000 salary with a Kubernetes job will change your life. But I see that only as a stepping stone. The real unlock lies in autonomy. Autonomy means the quality or state of being self-governing. So right now, I live a life of autonomy. I work where I want, with the technology I want, with whom I want, doing the projects that I want to do. But it was not always that way. When I worked at the hospital, I had to show up to the hospital at a specified time. I had to travel for almost an hour every day. So I was losing like maybe 10 hours a week on commuting and had no control over the work that I was doing. And I really wanted to be a more autonomous person. I wanted to be in control of my time. I wanted to be in control of the work that I did. And this is when I swore that I would make it my life's mission to have a remote tech job. I was in so much pain every single day doing a job that I hated, going to a place that I didn't like, coming home exhausted. And from here, this point of absolute suffering, I swore that I would change it and turn my life around. And now 5 years later, I'm making multiple six figures and haven't had to go to an office for 2 years. Now, because Kubernetes expertise is so critical and sought after, the companies are much more lenient in their remote work policies. In other words, because Kubernetes is a very niche skill and companies are struggling to get the people to work with it, they are much more willing to hire remote engineers as well. So if you have the skills, the Kubernetes skills, and you can do the work, they don't really care much. In the third quarter of 2025, 67% of Kubernetes job postings were remote jobs. 67%, so that's over half of the Kubernetes jobs, and we already established that those that were 121,000 job openings worldwide, over half of those are remote. So if you want a remote tech job that also makes $171,000 on average, Kubernetes is the skill to learn. And let's go back to that comment where people say almost no company should need it, no company should do it, it's overkill, etc. Well, someone forgot the companies that are hiring remote people for $200,000 a year. So do not listen to these people, because I truly believe that learning Kubernetes is one of the best ways to get the career of your dreams and where you can work where you want and still make good money. But it gets even better because the job, getting this Kubernetes career, is only a stepping stone to the next level of autonomy, and that is freelancing and contracting. I don't say this to brag, but I've more than doubled my income since I quit my job and started my own business. So if you know Kubernetes, being an employee pays exceptionally well, but you need to work that job for a while to gain the required skills and the know-how to start your own business. But when you have enough skills, you can make a lot more money as a freelancer or a contractor if you have the right Kubernetes skills. And there are plenty of enterprises and massive government entities out there who are just now moving their virtual machine workloads to the cloud, lift and shift. And all of these workloads have to be containerized at some point. And guess where those workloads will run? Well, Kubernetes, of course. So the thing is, the enterprises, they are moving their virtual machine workloads to Kubernetes. Now, I know this because we have an enterprise architect in KubeCraft, and he manages over $50 billion in contracts with US enterprise clients. And he gave us an in-depth workshop on the trends that he is seeing in the industry, golden information. And one of the trends was that enterprises are using Kubernetes as the platform. They are moving their virtual machines first to Kubernetes and run their virtual machines on Kubernetes, because this way they can run their Kubernetes clusters with VMs in any cloud or on-prem environment that they want. And then later they're going to take the step of containerizing their workloads and doing away with the virtual machines altogether. And next, there's also increasing demand for moving cloud infrastructure to on-prem environments again. Especially here in the Netherlands and in Europe, there are increasing concerns about having our government data stored with American cloud companies. Even though the data centers are here in the Netherlands, because it's run by an American company, actually the American law makes it so that the American government can actually access that data if there is a reason for it. And there's a lot of controversy around that here in the Netherlands right now. So there are some vague plans going around for building a European cloud or a Dutch Rijkscloud. And Kubernetes is the operating system of the cloud. So guess what they will use when they start building this Rijkscloud or these European clouds, right? They're going to be using Kubernetes. There's no doubt about it. The beauty of containerized workloads is that you can run them practically anywhere after you've done the work. It fundamentally does not matter if your Kubernetes cluster is running in the cloud or on-premise. The configuration and the required skills remain roughly the same. And this is why you can work basically anywhere if you have Kubernetes skills. And finally, there is of course AI. This is an even more exciting opportunity. So the initial AI hype is fading and companies are realizing that slapping AI on something is not just instantly going to make them more money. But I do see more and more applications of AI that involve local infrastructure. So for example, Aurea Imaging is using AI to scan fruit trees to optimize harvesting. So they have these farm fields, and they will drive tractors through those farm fields. And on that tractor, there's a camera that then scans the fruit trees, and it is analyzing the fruit trees and making a map of where they should spray salt water in order to optimize the harvest for next year. Because I'm not a farmer, but I believe that when you have fruit trees, you have to actually remove some of the buds so that you get more fruit eventually, or the fruits grow bigger. So they use salt water to remove those buds. So they drive their tractors through the fields, and then they're scanning the fruit trees. Now, they're taking these images, and then they need to be processed somewhere. They need to be analyzed by AI. Now, guess where this is happening? On a Kubernetes cluster that's running on the tractor that's driving through the fields. I mean, how cool is that? Running Kubernetes on tractors. But this is just one use case of edge computing where Kubernetes is going to absolutely crush it. And other use cases are supermarkets that are scanning video images in real time, like security video, or like analyzing patterns of walking and where people are stopping and looking at products or commercials. And this needs to happen very fast. And because it's this very private data with faces, etc., it has to stay on their own hardware. And again, this is another perfect use case for Kubernetes running on-prem. Now, all of these implementations will need to be done by skilled engineers. And I foresee that this kind of edge computing with local AI and local Kubernetes is only going to grow. Contractors and freelancers who have these on-prem Kubernetes skills, they're going to be printing money in the next decade. So I can keep going, but I think I've made my point. I went all in on Kubernetes 4 years ago, and it has completely changed my life. Now, let's say you do the same. And close your eyes for a moment and imagine what your life would look like 3 years from now. You are making $150,000 per year. Your job is fun again because there's always something new to learn. You have just started your first freelance project for a small local business, and you work remotely and have complete control over your daily routine. If this is the life that you want, start learning Kubernetes right now. Don't listen to the trolls on social media who don't understand what's happening. Kubernetes is booming, and there's enough cake for everyone. The question is, are you going to take a slice of that cake? If you want a remote job making $200,000 a year, I can help you with that. I've mentored over 800 people into six-figure DevOps careers. One of them landed a Kubernetes job 2 weeks after he started working with me. Others come straight out of university and land jobs after a few months because of the skills I teach them. And just last week, I received this message from one of my students. Hey Misha, I hope you're doing awesome. I just had to drop you a quick note because I got a job offer today. Over 50K a year salary jump. And honestly, this wouldn't have happened without you and the KubeCraft crew. I've only cracked the surface of Kubernetes, and that was enough to talk about it eloquently enough to land the job. I can't speak for anyone else, but KubeCraft has officially changed my and my family's life for the better. And here's the thing, this man joined KubeCraft on the 13th of October, and it's the 7th of November right now. In less than a month, he landed a Kubernetes job that got him an increase in salary of $50,000. Now these results speak for themselves, and this works because I have a complete system for people to execute, to learn Kubernetes, learn how to market themselves, and get a job within less than a month, with even a 50K raise. I mean, these are the effects of the system. So if you want my help with implementing this system, and if you want to get these same results, there will be information down below. You can click the link, book a call with my team, and I'm happy to show you how it works. Don't believe the trolls on social media. Kubernetes is booming, and I truly believe that this is the gateway to an autonomous life. You can get your job, make 200K a year, and then move to becoming a freelancer and start your own business. And all of that I will help you with in KubeCraft. So I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for watching this video. If there's one thing you should take away from this is learn Kubernetes, and you can get started with the free course that is linked below as well. See you in the next one.